Let's start with the basics. What made you decide to throw your hat into the ring?
Well, look, I think frankly, there was a need in the Congress party to see something happening. We've been going through some pretty rough years for the last few, and we've lost, I think, 39 of the last 45 elections in the country. We've also found ourselves in a position where large numbers, or at least significant numbers, of our colleagues were leaving us and going off to other parties. And there seemed to be essentially a concern that if business as usual continued, we'd never get anywhere. So since I was hearing all of this day after day after day, I decided to try and actually do something about it. And I thought that an election, which is something I've been calling for since 2014, an election would actually help both in terms of galvanizing the public's interest in the party, as well as energizing our own party members and workers. So that's the spirit in which I got into it.
Tell me this. I mean, you've heard this, that in a way, while your candidature has sparked a lot of media interest, a lot of commentary, suddenly the race seems to have legitimacy. There are those who will always bracket you as that deracinated elite face of the Congress, the one who doesn't have roots in the Hindi heartland, the heartland from which most of the AICC delegates come. Do you believe you have a chance at winning?
Well, first of all, I mean, that complaint is a bit unfair, considering that I'm one of those people who's won 3 Lok Sabha elections at a time when very few of my colleagues, including some who are leveling those criticisms, have been able to do so. So you can't be terribly deracinated and still win Lok Sabha elections, because you've got to go off and talk to people and persuade them that they can entrust their immediate future to you and that you can actually represent them meaningfully in the national parliament. So I think, in all fairness, without having to make too much of a case for myself, that's really an elite objection, because there is no elitism for somebody who gets elected, but somebody who can sit in the Rajya Sabha and never have to face an electorate doesn't consider themselves to be deracinated. They're willing to ascribe the label to others. I find that very troubling. So as far as I'm concerned, that's not a thing I take seriously. The Hindi heartland issue is a different matter. As you know, I do speak Hindi. I pop out of the Lok Sabha and give sound bites to Hindi channels on a daily basis when Parliament is in session. So it's not that I'm completely unconnected to the language, but the truth is, obviously, I'm not as fluent in Hindi as Mr. Modi is, or as I'd like to be, or as I am in English. The fact still is, nonetheless, that as far as our country is concerned, we are a multilingual country. And the notion that to be a man of the people, you can only speak Hindi in sort of a good rustic Bihari accent, but that you can't speak Malayalam and win elections and be considered a man of the people, I find that curiously troubling.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that the North-centric bias of our politics or the way we understand them is fair, but, I'll tell you, Pranab Mukherjee once told me when I was trying to provoke him into answering why he'd never been considered for prime ministership, his face turned all red and he said, it's because I can't speak Hindi. So, the fact is that this is one of the entrenched sort of biases in the way our politics is arranged. Do you believe it to be a disadvantage for you?
No, I mean, look, frankly, I think given half a chance, I'll be able to demonstrate that I speak and understand enough Hindi to understand the needs and aspirations of people and to communicate to them in a fairly simple way. Saral Hindi Bolta Hoon. But after that, I can certainly articulate their needs in the kind of voice that is heard effectively in Parliament or in the national discourse. Look, ultimately, we have great speakers in the country. Mr. Modi is one of them. His oratory is magnificent and unparalleled. But should we be judging him by the quality of his speeches or by how well he implements the things that he promises? I have to say to you in all fairness that if we are going to look at how people's lives have been impacted by politicians, the great speakers are not necessarily the most successful and most effective leaders of this country.
Yeah. I was talking to Manu Pillai, who of course is a great author, but who also worked with you closely for many years. And
Yep.
he described you, again, he made this point about the fact that it was very unfair to call you elite and deracinated given your successive victories in Thiruvananthapuram or Trivandrum. But he also made this point that you were a person of your own mind, you sometimes deviated from the party line when you believed in it. And let's say engaging with Prime Minister Modi, he cited as one such example. And there's that photograph, I remember, I think we have it, there it is, when you did actually go to present a copy of your book to the Prime Minister. Now, there are people in the Congress, but not Digvijay Singh, because I remember the Prime Minister attended, I think, one of his children's weddings, but there are people in the Congress who do not like this sort of engagement. And you've heard this criticism. How did you see Manu sort of Pillai's description of you as someone who could deviate from your own party when necessary?
No, look, I mean, it's more a question of style than of ideology or conviction. I'm totally sort of in sync with the set of beliefs and sort of value systems that the Congress stands for. And I think that if you look at my consistent performance on all major substantive issues, not only have I been a resolute critic of the BJP government, but I have been the lead speaker for the Congress, or one of the lead speakers for the Congress, on pretty much all the big issues that divide our party. So it's not that I've been someone who has, in some ways, sold out the party's convictions and anything that really mattered. But yes, on certain smaller things where I felt the government was actually doing something the Congress party would equally happily have done when we were in power, I have applauded the government for doing it, whether it was Swachh Bharat, sanitation is a priority that goes back to Mahatma Gandhi's era, whether it was International Yoga Day, whether it was something like hosting the World Sufi Conference or the World Buddhist Conference. And these are kinds of things that I praise the government for, because these were laudable initiatives. At bottom, we are Indians. We want India to do well. But that doesn't imply to me that in any way I have abandoned my party's core principles when it comes to things like our secular politics, when it comes to criticizing the majoritarian bigotry unleashed by people in power in our government today. When it comes to all of that, there is simply no doubt that I'm very much on the same page as the rest of my party.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.